This video is going to describe as clearly as possible how to determine marginal opportunity cost in a linear production possibilities frontier, and given different opportunity costs, how to determine comparative advantage. Trade is always illustrated with only two countries and only two products. So first, we'll identify two countries, the United States and China. And then we'll draw production possibilities frontiers, identify the products, and compare opportunity costs. So, as in the other video, we'll assume the two products made by the United States and China are cell phones, which we'll show on the y-axis. Cell phones. Come on. There we go. And the other product is soybeans on the x-axis, labeling China first, and then correcting my mistake, sliding soybeans over just a little bit on the x-axis in the U.S. so that we can identify quantities clearly. So the U.S. and China both can produce soybeans and cell phones. But because the resources in the two countries aren't identical, they can't produce these products for the same costs. So first we'll identify the maximum amount of soybean and cell phone production in the U.S. If the U.S. used all of its resources for soybeans, they could produce 40 bushels of soybeans. If they gave up all 40 bushels of soybeans, they could produce 40 cell phones. There, bushels. China has different capabilities. In China, agricultural land is not as easy to come by, much bigger population. And you can see visually that China has different opportunity costs, but here we'll identify it numerically. China can produce 20 bushels of soybeans if they dedicate all their resources to soybeans, or 80 cell phones if they dedicate all their resources to producing cell phones. So the two countries clearly have different capabilities when you look at them. Trade is based not on total output, but on the marginal opportunity cost. So first, we'll identify in the U.S. a concentration, a specialization, 100% in cell phones, which would mean the U.S. produced 0 soybeans and 40 cell phones. Only cell phones are produced. I think that's what I wrote. So that's point A, specialization in cell phones with no soybean production. Point B, which will be illustrated there, would imagine the U.S. gave up all of its cell phone production in order to produce only soybeans. So they would have to give up 40 cell phones in order to produce 40 bushels of soybeans. In other words, the opportunity cost of 40 bushels of soybeans would be 40 cell phones. So the total cost of 40 bushels of soybeans would be 40 cell phones, total opportunity cost. And that's what I'm writing very slowly here. Come on, there we go. Once I finish slowly writing this statement, we're going to simplify this so that we can determine the marginal opportunity cost of 1 bushel of soybeans. So all we have to do is simplify this ratio of soybean production to cell phone production, which I know you've done before in mathematics class because it's how you determine slope. Slope is a relationship between x and y that's determined by delta y, change in y compared to the change in x. In economics, the slope is sort of it, but it doesn't really matter whether you're moving up, which way you're moving. It's a relationship between the two. So minus 40 cell phones would allow plus 40 bushels of beans. That's the total opportunity cost of 40 bushels. If we simplify this a little bit, we just divide by 10, right? So minus 40 plus 40, if we give up 4 phones, we're able to produce 4 bushels of soybeans. And then simplifying even further, because it's a linear function, we just give up 1 cell phone in the United States every time we wish to produce 1 bushel of soybeans. I'm not sure why writing bushel is so hard for me, but apparently it is. Oh, there we go. 1 bushel of beans has an opportunity cost of 1 cell phone. And it's also true, therefore, that if you shifted production from soybeans to cell phones, that giving up 1 bushel of soybeans in the U.S. would allow people in the U.S. to produce 1 cell phone, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to write in just a second. Because China's land, labor, and capital resources are different from those in the U.S., China has different opportunity costs for the production of soybeans and cell phones. And you can see visually that China can either produce 80 cell phones or 20 bushels of soybeans. And in just a minute, I'm going to write, again, a little slower than I'd like, but, you know. As I said, China's resources are different from the U.S., so China's opportunity costs are different. See? Now it's written down. When we calculate opportunity costs in China and look at the same specializations, China specializing in cell phones means that they can produce 80 cell phones. If they gave up all 80 cell phones, they would be able to produce only 20 bushels of soybeans. So China gives up way more cell phones for fewer soybeans compared to the U.S. Comparative advantage is comparing different the opportunity costs for the production of the same product. So opportunity cost of producing soybeans in the U.S. compared to the opportunity cost of producing soybeans in China. So giving up 80 cell phones will yield China the ability to produce 20 bushels of soybeans. And if we simplify this, total cost minus 80 cell phones will allow China to produce 20 bushels of beans. We will do the same process we did with the United States opportunity costs. This would be the total cost of specialization, right? If you want to know how many cell phones China would have to give up to produce 20 bushels of soybeans, you look at the extreme potential production, right? Giving up 80 cell phones will allow China to produce 20 bushels of beans. Or if we simplify this to determine the marginal cost, the additional cost for 1 more bushel of beans, minus 80 will yield 20 right? Minus 80 phones will yield 20 bushels of beans. Or giving up 8 cell phones will allow China to produce 2 more bushels of soybeans, or even simpler, giving up 4 soybeans. Sorry, 4 cell phones will allow China to produce 1 bushel of soybeans. So in China, soybeans cost 4 times as much to produce compared to the US. China gives up 4 cell phones and only can produce 1 bushel of soybeans. The United States only has to give up 1 production cell phone to produce 1 bushel of soybeans. So for China, it doesn't make very much sense to specialize in something that the United States can do much cheaper than China can. And the opposite is also true. It doesn't make sense for the United States to specialize in cell phones when China can produce cell phones, 4 times as many cell phones for every bushel of soybeans given up compared to the US. Given the realities of these different costs, China specializes in the production of cell phones. The United States specializes in the production of soybeans. And the two countries, through negotiation, which sometimes is painful because the two countries are different, they can negotiate a trading relationship so that both countries can lower their costs. We can buy cell phones cheaper from China compared to producing them ourselves. China can buy soybeans cheaper from the US than it would cost them to produce soybeans. And that is for a different video to give you the details of that. So I'm going to stop talking and let the video play all the way out, and you can read my painfully slow handwriting. Thanks for watching.